So I don't know that I need to talk because everything I was going to say, you've already done. So it's just all taken care of. I like how that works. Um, the title came about because I was contemplating the universe as giving us the gift, right? Giving us the gift of life, of experience, of being. And yet we have all of this stuff to unwrap, right? To give back to the universe. So we really, to be gifts to the spirit, what are the things that we need to do to awaken? And some of them you've already said is that healing and that alignment and that recognition that you are even more to begin with, and love is at the base of everything. Now, I haven't put that word in here because that's a huge word, right? And it can mean so many things to so many people. Sometimes we say the word love and people switch off because for them, love is nothing but pain and hurt. The concept that love is multi-layered just is not there. So today, we're going to use words like healing, authenticity, and awareness of self. Those aspects of the loving universe. And those that when we become in alignment with, that's when we become the gift. That's when our gifts unwrap. So how do we know that we even need to get there, though? That's the question. Because we all know that, yes, we're taught through unity that you are 100% divine. But are we using that divinity? And when do we know that where can we nudge that back into place or in alignment or in coherence with what divine and love really is? And one way to do that is to pay attention to our own bodies in awareness and the awareness of what irritates us in the world. What is giving us that we want to shout WTF at the top of our lungs and say, holy cow. You can add in whatever words you would like for WTF. I know what mine are. But especially reading the news lately, I think, that's one way that I know what I need to work on is because I have some type of really strong reaction. Now, the people that are sitting in front of me know that this past couple of weeks, there has been one thing after another in my life, through ice dams breaking through my roof, to cats missing, to windshields cracking, it's just like on and on and on. And I've realized that not one of those things have put me over any kind of edge. It's life. I'm doing fine. It's just something we need to handle. Everything's still okay. Nothing's out to get me. It's just things that sometimes it comes in big waves instead of little trickles, and you deal with all the paperwork and the whatevers that's happening. But then you pick up the newspaper or you click on your app, and then that's when, I'm feeling it in my body. And what is that telling me about myself and where my alignment is and where I can unwrap a gift to be? So before I go any further, in true unity fashion, I do have a little reading. Now, everyone here is going to be surprised because it's actually a Bible reading. It's not my go-to, to be honest. And yet I was praying with somebody earlier this week, and there's somebody that needs something like that to hold on to. And this is what came to mind. And I'm like, that fits everything we're talking about here as well. Then it's Colossians 3:13. I'm going to read it as is first, and then do the metaphysical reading. So Colossians 3:13 reads, bear with one another. And if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other, just as God has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. So I rewrote that again in true unity fashion and came up with be patient and compassionate with each other. And when conflicts arise, let go of grievances. Just as the universe has embraced you with unconditional love and understanding, so too should you offer that same love and understanding to one another. Now remember, We are all connected by the same source. And in that compassion and forgiving, we heal not only ourselves, but also the unity of all. I want to put a caveat around that. That doesn't mean if somebody is abusive to you, you say, I forgive you, and stay in that place. This is about what is hitting us in the moment from the world around us. That's the conversation today. The other one's a totally different conversation. But we are invited to see forgiveness and compassion and all the things while we are feeling in a certain way. And that's part of the work of the quantum living, is to recognize and be super aware of what our body and our mind is telling us at any given time. So I also want to talk about the word forgiveness, because that's another one that's huge. That's another one that's huge. And really, forgiveness is, let's change the word just a little bit for this conversation and say that we're in authenticity. Right? So we are with ourselves on what we're really feeling, shedding light on those feelings, knowing about their origins, because when we talk about forgiveness, it is an all internal thing. It has really nothing to do with what's happening on the outside. It's all how we're reacting in the moment. So if we are authentic in that, and we can cultivate the empathy and compassion from that, that's really what we're talking about in the forgiveness. It's that transformational process, allowing us to see circumstances as part of world events, and then to decide where our authenticity is and the action that we may need or choose to take and to be with. I say an action to choose because all our actions are going to be different. Now, somebody, I don't remember who now, but mentioned the idea of, being active in the world, especially with whatever event hits you at the moment, and to be that service in that moment. There's a book called Serviceberry. It's by Robin Wall Kimmerer, if I pronounced her name right. She also wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, which a lot of people already know. And in the book Serviceberry, she talks about the tree giving its fruit freely without expecting anything in return. And sometimes I think, especially for me, when I'm reading something that's hitting me, activating me, triggering me, it's because I'm like, what, don't you know better to to not take that, or to give back, or to let people have that? And what she says in Serviceberry is to not put parameters around our giving, to not say how the world needs to receive it, but to know that in the giving, it does allow something to grow. It moves the world. And it's not out of an act of obligation, but it's out of an act of movement into our authenticity, into what nourishes our relationship with our divinity, and moving that into our collective humanity. So it's an act of the gift of you being the gift to the universe. It's also about sacred activism, right? So our gift in our movement, when we know what
Is Jen frozen for everyone? Yeah. I don't know if you can hear us, Jen, you're frozen. If I can send her a message. She's probably been kicked out and will come back in. So just give her a few minutes. How's everybody enjoying that so far? Pretty cool, eh? I love the way she changed that Bible quote into universal language for us, which was really beautiful.
I think with her message, Cheryl, it's a great opportunity as she goes out and comes back in for us to send out our love and our, not forgiveness. She doesn't need forgiveness, but compassion and yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. How life just happens, right? And
Yes.
how we react, which is
Exactly
what she's talking about too, right?
Yeah.
So this is a great example. How are you feeling internally? And yeah, maybe something just to contemplate, even after we leave here today. Yeah.
I'm sure she'll be back, but even just so far, there's a whole message that's like I'm writing notes like crazy. It's already that all the language that we love to have and be able to reflect on those things that we sometimes take personally or take as hardship or difficulty and say, wait a minute, it's how I react that matters. And she's already done a great job.
Okay. Would anybody like to share anything that they are thinking about, or that anything in the message has sparked in them?
I'm processing, Cheryl, on without revealing the person, but somebody that is young and very near and dear to me, who is, I think, trying to exit out of an abusive relationship with her boyfriend. And so the family has witnessed this happening, and yeah, so sitting back and like, okay, how do I process this and not be angry at him, sort of love him and leave him. Bye now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jen is back now.
Oh, welcome back, Jen. Thank you for that little interlude, so we can just share a little bit of what we've got so far from your wonderful talk.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad. Looking for the silver lining, right? Didn't I just say it's just, it comes in waves? It's all good.
Absolutely.
I'm not quite sure where I left off, so I'm just going to start talking and see if it makes sense. How about that?
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Okay. The idea of authenticity is that alignment with our truth and our oneself at any given moment. And it's a recognizing and how we're relating to any situation. I don't know if you've seen the book A Hope for Cynics by Jamil Zaki. He talks a lot about being authentic and moving in empathy through the world. And he offers a psychological perspective and empathizes empathy, the ability to understand each other and to share with one another, and saying that it's not just a passive act, but that is also a choice. That's a choice we're making to be empathetic. And his insights, again, align with this idea of sacred activism, where we act compassionately from the spot where our talents are ignited when we know, what it is really that's going on with us. So for me, because I keep, talking about that, but just a tiny example from just this past, actually it's been building for a while, but the idea of banning any kind of book or banning words off of pages or any of that drives me bonkers. Well, I was an educator in a classroom for a lot of years, and the idea that to keep people ignorant just doesn't sit well with me. And to the point where many years ago, when my kids were very young, my dad, who did not align with me in the way that, that I feel, picked out history books to give to my children. And from his point of view, they were the best aspect of United States history that there was. Well, I have a history degree, and I'll just say who they were by. They were written by Rush Limbaugh, who did not write history at all. He wrote propaganda for children that my dad bought into. I still have to have compassion for that point of view. And I'm so against getting rid of books. I still have those books tucked away. Now that my boys are almost finished with high school, they will get those books. They weren't reading them at the time they got them because, the idea of understanding what was really going on there, they didn't have enough information. But to keep them from them totally is not within me. Even when I don't agree with it, it's still information. It's still, somebody else's perspective. And then they get to choose when they're old enough to understand how to choose that.
Mm-hmm.
So reading all the other things about knowing that I did that, I kept books that I didn't agree with, and I'm still going to give them, and all these other books are flying off the shelves, drive me absolutely bonkers. So I've made ways to have book clubs here and ways to have things called a silent book club where people bring whatever book they want and they can talk about it to each other. And there's even a shelf in our library downstairs that has nothing but banned books on it. And I try to expand that as much as possible. So that's my action forward in a way that doesn't tell anybody they can't think what they want to think, but also satisfies my alignment and my truth and the understanding that all the information is out there. But then layered with that is the idea for me to teach people that they need to have more than just one side of information. So, to explore the different perspectives and also explore how to find things like sources and all the things that I would have taught in the classroom, and critical thinking. And I think critical thinking is part of the component that we use to find what it is we're really upset about in ourselves. What is that? Well, for me, it was hitting my sense of self-worth, because what did I spend all this time learning and teaching if they're going to just destroy that and not let people have that? So was there something wrong with me? Was there something wrong with all those years that I did? And to sit with that and go, no, there's nothing wrong with that. And here's how I can bring that forward in a positive way. Bishop Booty demonstrated her bravery, standing in front of elected leaders, asking them to have mercy and empathy for all peoples, living within the borders of their elected, places, and saying, you're serving these people, please don't destroy them. And in her book, How to Learn to Be Brave, she talks about how that wasn't immediate for her, that she had years of bringing herself into alignment every time she got hit with something like what I got hit with, the banned book list. She talks about all these instances over and over for herself that brought her to that point to just be brave in that alignment and to know right when it's happening and not to back away from it. And that's the authenticity. That's the forgiveness part, if you will. It's not forgiving the outside world. It's maybe forgiving ourselves for saying, I didn't feel worthy, so I'm not going to say anything, or I'm not strong enough, so I'm not going to do anything. And to break down those walls of cynicism and separation. Because in that alignment, in that authenticity and forgiveness, that's the healing. And when we do that for ourselves, that moves out into the world. Like, sometimes we don't understand. And there are several organizations and research that's been done. I'm going to give you a couple. There's a BBC article from May 13th, 2019. I do have the link. If Cheryl wants it later, I can send it to you. Because I didn't write down the author, but I do have the link and the date. And in that, they discovered through the research of Erica Chenoweth, hopefully I pronounced her name right. She's a political scientist at Harvard. She did a lot of research around what it takes for a movement to shift things in consciousness and in people and in activism. And she says it only takes 3.5% of the population moving in a non-violent way to get that ball rolling. And once it's rolling, it hardly ever stops. And she lists example after example throughout the world and throughout time where that has happened. That one, just think about it, only 3.5% moving in that direction, following their authenticity in a ways of like civil disobedience or speaking out. And nonviolent doesn't just mean banging people over the head. It means in words as well, you know, and how we address each other. Here's my geek coming out, but there's a Star Trek quote when, if you know Star Trek at all, the characters Kirk and Spock, and Kirk is the captain and Spock is the science officer. And Kirk is in a very big mood about whatever's happening and he doesn't want to hear it. And he's in one of these moments that we're talking about where he's kind of fighting with himself about what to do. And he made a decision and Spock's telling him, your decision is not, you know, in alignment with who you are and what we're all about. And he calls Spock a name. And in this very moment, I'm not going to remember what the name is, but the response from Spock was, if you're resorting to name calling, then there's some part of you that understands that I'm right and that you need to look at this. You know, and to think about that, because that's a form of outward violence that does not align with our integrity. And it shows, you know, maybe what's going haywire with us that we don't want to address in the moment. But 3.5% of the population actively participating in a non-violent way on a topic ensures serious change. And she talks about a lot with political change. There's another group called the HeartMath Institute, which in a moment, that's the short meditation I'll take you through. And many of you may already be really familiar with that. But the HeartMath Institute has done a lot of work on moving ourselves into what they call coherence, you know, where our mind and our heart are in alignment, and that energy that expands from our heart center that they can actually measure is there, that it's a real thing. We talk about it all the time, you know, and take it as just a given, and yet there's scientific data to back that up. And I never remember the formula. I just don't remember the formula, but I remember the answer to the formula. And for change to take place, it only takes one person in every 1,000 to be in that resonant space to initiate that change in somebody else's heart. And they've practiced this in real time. There's one really fascinating study they did in larger cities like Washington, D.C., where they placed people around different times of day, different places. You know how scientists are, they got to do it over and over again to make sure. And they found that when they taught people how to be in this resonant space, in their mind and their heart in alignment with either peace or compassion or empathy, 911 calls went down, domestic abuse went down, all these things went down while people were in active mode of practicing that. So it's a real thing to look at ourselves, to say, what is it that is causing me to be out of authenticity, to be out of love, to be out of alignment, and to bring us into that first through reflection, you know, and truth with ourselves, and then moving into an action that can bring us that sacred activism and what we can do to move that forward in a positive way. I'm not sure, since I haven't been here with you before, but do you move right into meditation, or do you have a break in between? Move right in. Okay. So if you, and this will just be short because I'd like to just give you a little bit of a hint on what's possible through the heart math is a really easy entryway to get started with feeling yourself. So if you just take a moment, first is maybe just inhale and bring your shoulders up to your ears. And then a nice exhale, big sigh out. And then if it feels right, you can go ahead and gently shutter your eyes. Allow yourself just to feel your body. Be aware of the sensations, how you feel against your chair, how your feet feel on the floor or in your shoes. Any kind of sounds you hear around you. Any scents in your room. Even the temperature of the air on your skin. Noticing your breath, how it moves in and out of your body. The feel of it moving in and out of your nose. The rise and fall of your chest. And then bring to mind something that you deeply appreciate, something that brings you joy. And then feel that image in your heart. Allowing that feeling to grow with each breath. The appreciation and joy in the image you've chosen. And I'm going to be quiet for 3 minutes as we feel that. And if at any time you feel like you've drifted off, bring to mind what you appreciate and allow yourself to feel it. Breathing and being. Allow yourself an extra breath. Feeling your body, offering gratitude for the experience and the awareness. Nice big inhale through the nose. Exhale, sigh. Just 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Eric Butterworth would call this moving into the silence. 3 minutes. 3 minutes, the HeartMath Institute has measured that we start to move into resonance in our bodies. Cortisol levels go down, dopamine levels go up after this 3-minute alignment. Silence in this way for 3 minutes starts to lead us into that awareness of self and of body. What part of us feels what when things aren't right in our world? What part of ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our spirits are reacting? When we engage, we practice, and we start to be authentic, our awareness heightens. We're able to sit in these 3 minutes for longer. We can move further. Because let's admit it, this was hard. 3 minutes, and it was still hard. And yet this is what unlocks us, unlocks our talents, allows us to know what our talents even are, and us to be honest with them. Maybe we have talents that we were told as youngsters weren't worthy of us to be used, or that they were silly, and we can find them again and move them into the world. We nourish others as we nourish ourselves. And it's exercises like this that help get us there. And we learn as we teach. But here's the tricky part. Living in truth means moving past any of our fears of showing who our authentic selves really are. We might not even be familiar with who that is in us. And yet, that's the gift the universe is waiting for. Thank you.